Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's training. So for today's training, we are going to learn how to add ourselves as a case manager. So in the client information tab, there's going to be a case managers tab. And before you're able to add a case goal or a case note, you have to add yourself as a case manager first. So what we're going to do is click on Add Case Manager. If you are working with a household, make sure you include your household members when you're adding yourself as a case manager. So there's a couple of things that we're going to have to answer. So the type, there's community services user, there's me, and there's other. If you click on me, all of your information will auto-populate for you. So then you don't have to input any of the rest. It'll have your name, your title, it'll input your phone number, your email address, it'll have your provider, and then your start date. Those are all of the things that will auto-populate for you. And then there is also an end date here, but when you're just adding yourself as a case manager, you don't have to put an end date. So then you can just go ahead and add case manager. And then you'll now see back on the case manager's home screen that there's your name. It'll have the provider. It will have a phone number and then the start date of adding yourself when you've added yourself as a case manager. And that concludes today's training. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's training. Today's training is going to be about how to add yourself as a case manager, add a case goal, and add a case note. So before you're able to add a case goal or a case note, you do have to add yourself as a case manager. So in the client information tab, there's a case managers tab. In that tab, you're going to click Add Case Manager. If you are working with a household, you're going to make sure to include all of the household members into adding yourself as a case manager. Next thing is type. There are 3 different types that you can choose from. There's community services user, there's me, and there's other. If you choose me, all of your information will populate, so you won't have to manually put anything, all of the information in. Everything will just populate for you. You can leave the end date blank when you are just adding yourself as a case manager. And then you can simply just click Add Case Manager. It'll bring you back to the case managers tab, and you can now see that you are now added as a case manager. So after you've added yourself as a case manager, you can then move on to adding a case plan or a case goal and a case note. So in the case plan section tab, there's goals. You can click Add Goal. Remember to include all of your household members if you are working with a household. Your provider will be there, will already be populated for you, so you won't have to select anything. You can select yourself as the case manager. You're going to want to put the date that the goal was set. It is going to populate with today's date. So if today's date was not the date that you and your household or your family set that goal, then you can change that by either manually deleting this date, or you can use the calendar section, the calendar button. You're going to want to set the classification. So there's lots of different classifications that you can choose from. I'm going to choose housing for the classification. Next, you're going to want to answer the type. We're going to choose furniture. If you have a goal description, you can put the goal description in there. If you and your clients have a target date that you would like to have this goal completed by, again, you can manually type in the date or you can use the calendar function. Then there's the overall status, which is closed, identified, or in progress. I'm going to choose it's been identified. And then if closed, the outcome, and then if partially complete, percent complete. And then for if closed outcome, these are the options, and then there's a date that you can put for that. Below that is projected follow-up date of when we're going to follow up about the classification, the housing to get the furniture. The follow-up user, you can select yourself. The follow-up made, completed follow-up date, and then the outcome at follow-up. Once all of these things have been identified, you can go ahead and add goal. And then underneath that, once you've added the goal, case notes will appear. You can then add case note. Make sure to include all of your household members. The provider will be selected. You can go ahead and select yourself as the case manager. The note date, it'll automatically populate with today's date, and then a note. The case notes, if you don't know how case notes should look, make sure you ask your supervisor, but case notes should just be direct, straight to the point. So for today's training, my case note is going to be client saw sure they liked and Timmy. And then you can go ahead and save the case note. And then you can go down to save and exit. And you can now see that there's the goal and that there is a case note. And that concludes today's training.